Great. Okay, I'm live. Wonderful. Perfect. Hope you guys are all enjoying Miami Blockchain Week. I wish I could be there with you guys in person. It's been a couple of years since I've been to BTC Miami, and it was so much fun last time I was there. So I hope everyone that is there in person is enjoying that, is enjoying the Blockchain Center House and the Hackathon and everything that's going on. And for all of you guys that are joining us from a decentralized location, join the club. I'm joining you from Austin, Texas, and I'm so happy to be here. So really happy to be back again. I know I spoke on a panel with Trent Pool, and Mr. Nick Spanos also joined us last time to start addressing what I would call is a really hot movement right now in blockchain legislation. So right now we are in a situation where we still don't have a lot of federal laws that protect and define things for the blockchain industry. So if you are an American, a couple of years ago, you probably didn't know anyone that was establishing their blockchain companies in the United States. We had hardly any legal definitions that actually gave us clarity. And for the people that dared to start their companies here, so many people were having to give their money back to investors, or they were getting in trouble with the SEC, not really because so many of them were bad actors or had chosen to do something wrong, but because digital assets and the distributed ledger technology space had not been well defined in legislation. And therefore, things were being over-regulated in a gray space that lacked definition and lacked really easy to understand rules for entrepreneurs to pay attention to and to go by. So the way that this started to be fixed, I'll go back and tell you a little story of exactly how this came about, which was that Caitlin Long, who many of you have probably heard of, was trying to make a donation to her alma mater where she had gone to undergrad before going to Harvard and going to Wall Street before ending up full-time in crypto. But she was trying to donate in Bitcoin to her alma mater, the University of Wyoming. And she wanted to make a donation specifically to provide funding for more female engineers, right? And she wanted to provide this funding in Bitcoin. And what she found out when she was trying to make this donation was that it was illegal because she didn't have a money transmitter's license. So not being deterred by that piece of information, she sought out legislators who were interested in introducing a Bitcoin exemption to the Money Transmitters Act so that you could donate or make payments or receive payments in Bitcoin without having a license, right? Which obviously makes sense to all of us in the industry, and that's what, how we expect to go about our business, but that's a new concept, right? So they started working on this at the end of 2017. So come January 2018, and Caitlin Long goes to the Satoshi Roundtable annual conference and starts talking to quite a few other blockchain entrepreneurs about this and saying, this is something that we really need. I think most people agreed at the time that it would be great for people in the industry to be able to actually start and grow businesses in the United States of America in the DLT market, in the blockchain industry, right? I think everyone was on the same page there. So this made a lot of noise at Satoshi Roundtable, and Brock Pierce happened to mention this, like, oh, hey, there are some new laws that are being written in Wyoming, and they're going to be introduced to Congress. And I got really excited, and I was like, hey, I have spent a lot of my life doing lobbying. So helping write new laws, helping write amendments to laws, and helping get those laws passed by talking to legislators about why those laws are important. My background is in human rights law, so I traditionally have always worked on legislation that helps individuals secure their rights. So both internationally as well as locally. And so that this really spoke to me in general, because I think most people listening to this would agree that owning your value, owning your finances, and therefore your digital assets is one of the greatest ways that you can protect your own rights, where no one can take that away from you. And so I really saw this as, in a way, an extension of human rights law, because how can you protect your own rights if you don't actually own any of the value that you create in your life? And so to me, this was really straightforward. Like, obviously, we need to define our digital assets in law. Obviously, we need to give people rights to these digital assets, and we need to allow people to be able to freely trade or create businesses in this industry, and not have this kind of massive gray area that makes it so difficult regulatorily for anyone to really build and be confident building and spending so much of their blood, sweat, and tears, creating a company, right? So I decided to quit my job. For those of you that that know me, at the time I was working at Cambridge Analytica, and most people don't know exactly why I quit. They think I quit to become a whistleblower. I quit I quit in order to fly to Wyoming and start working with the legislators there. So I flew there to meet Caitlin Long after I was introduced to her by Brock Pierce, and I got there and they were introducing two bills to Congress, and one of them was this exemption to the Money Transmitters Act. And the second one was a definition of digital assets, for the first time, that saying digital assets are a new asset class that needs to be defined by new legislation. But first, we're going to start to make some definitions of what this asset class includes. This bill included a definition of a utility token for the first time in law. So separating tokens that are just used in order to run or power a network from actual securities. So this was a massive challenge to the SEC to say, hey, we're going to exercise our state rights, and we're going to say that you do not have purview over every token that is ever created out of a blockchain company, because a lot of these tokens are actual utilities. They're not meant to rise in value. And if they do because they're on open markets, it's not because they were designed that way. They were actually designed to power networks. And we need to make sure that we have that defined in law. So that was really exciting. And I sat there in Wyoming working with not just legislators, but the banking commission and blockchain entrepreneurs that flew in from all around the world. We had some incredible legislators like Representative Tyler Lindholm, who was the first person that started writing laws around, and he wanted to get rid of the Money Transmitters Act altogether, let alone just do a Bitcoin exemption. But he was very pro BTC and was working with Caitlin. And we had all these incredible legislators that were very motivated by the fact that there were hundreds of blockchain entrepreneurs flying in from all over the world to say, hey, I would like to build a company in America, but until you create these laws, it's, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to risk all my time, my capital, my money to do that, and potentially have it all taken away from me. That doesn't make any sense. And so we were there meeting with legislators, meeting with members of the Banking Commission, explaining to them how important this technology was, not just to us, but to the economy. And that if the state of Wyoming decided to stick its neck out for the industry, that guess what? They would really reap the benefits, because right now there was no safe haven for blockchain entrepreneurship in the United States of America at all. And whether it was, a large group of Americans that wanted to create their companies in their own country, that's one thing. But there were also people flying in from Switzerland and Singapore and Hong Kong that said, hey, I'm not even an American, but I would start a company in America if you had laws that protected me and my company. And so from there onwards, we've now passed 20 blockchain laws in the state of Wyoming. Many of those have been passed completely unanimously in terms of the vote, which is incredible. We have done everything from pass the first ever crypto banking license. It's called a special purpose depository institution, or a speedy bank license, if you are just reading the acronym. And that allows, for the first time, a bank to be created that just deals in digital assets, which is really exciting. Kraken actually got the first license that was issued. So Kraken is America's first 100% crypto bank, which is very cool. And then Caitlin Long decided to stop working in traditional finance and moved over to creating a bank herself. So Avanti Capital, that is completely focused on institutional clients, which is also very exciting. So those two licenses have just been introduced, and it's really great because this is for the first time where you're seeing a bank that has laws around, fiduciary responsibility to clients. So your responsibility is first to the well-being of your client and their assets, not to just creating profits for shareholders. So we're looking at these ethical business models in terms of how digital assets are handled. So that's pretty exciting. And we've really written and now passed legislation that covers so many different things. And I now sit on the subcommittee for data definitions, on the standing committee for blockchain, fintech, and digital innovation, the congressional standing committee. So what we do in session these days is continue to draft laws that have to do with this industry and with digital innovation in general. But for instance, we're writing laws that create an LLC structure that are just for DAOs. So distributed autonomous organizations now have a registered LLC company that allows it to operate in a legal manner and a way for that to be registered, et cetera, and so forth. So that's pretty cool. That took a long time to actually put together that structure. We're now writing laws such as anti-SIM swapping legislation for the first time that puts more regulatory compliance and data privacy precautions on telcos. So obviously, a lot of people in the blockchain industry have been targeted by SIM swappers and hackers, and so that is also a new piece of legislation that we're trying to get through this year. We're writing the first ever laws on digital identity to actually define digital identity in law and give us the rights to protect our personally identifiable information, or PII, and to use digital identity standards and platforms to go out and interact in our digital lives and to have that accepted by companies and governments. It's really getting very exciting. And so, I wanted to break for a moment to say, Wyoming has been such an incredible example of what is possible when entrepreneurs work with legislators. So a lot of you out there, you might think the government is here to regulate me, not here to help me. Well, that's not true. It depends who in the government you're talking about. And the more time you spend with people who have been elected to government, or the more time you spend getting your friends elected to government, then those people are really looking out for you and they want to hear what you have to say. They want to help you. And so it's been such an incredible experience to work with legislators that do really care about this industry and are specifically really motivated to help us build our business. I mean, Wyoming has now had thousands of companies come into the state, including big companies like Kraken and Cardano, right? So there have been now, minimum, when Bitcoin was still at 10K, the amount of assets that had moved to Wyoming was already over $10 billion. Now it's probably closer to $30 billion that has moved to Wyoming because of these laws. So obviously other states are starting to take notice of that. And what that means is that there is now a movement within the community to start to think about how do we get some similar laws at least passed in other states so that we can start to hope that we would get some federal laws passed sometime soon that will apply to the entire country and will make everyone feel a lot more comfortable building and doing business here. Because I think, we'd all love to see that. And so there's some really exciting movements with quite a few different states. Like since Wyoming passed the first package of around, I think it was 13 laws in 2 or 3 different sessions that we did, that's when a lot of other states started looking into that and saying, okay, well, we want to try to pass these laws too. And that was still when, I suppose like 2018 crypto is a buzzword, but still the blockchain industry hadn't become, institutionally acceptable or as attractive as it is today. So this year is the right time for this movement to really be picking up speed again, and for states to really start to consider making similar moves to Wyoming. That is for a number of reasons, not just to attract companies from other places, because first mover advantage is really with Wyoming, but it's to make sure that everyone that is from that state and lives in that state are building businesses within that state. It's so that the government and companies in that state have the ability to use 21st century technology in order to properly conduct transparent and trustworthy transactions and business. The state of Wyoming now has all of their land titles secured and registered on the blockchain. One of their biggest industries, beef, they now have all of their cattle on the blockchain to be able to prove from the time the cows are born to the time that they are purchased by a consumer, that is verified from the field to your house, and you know exactly where it came from, the exact farm that it came from, what that animal was fed. Beef Chain is the company that built that, the first USDA approved blockchain company, right? So that tracking and traceability, that transparency in the food supply chain, so exciting. So tons of states can take advantage of these practical applications of blockchain. I would say after this past November, we're hopefully going to see a lot of states, either county by county or by state, start to think about blockchain voting. There have been 5 states that have already conducted blockchain voting. And I think, when we're in a situation where no one can agree on whether we have actually counted votes properly and we have to do recounts, well, guess what? There exist technologies where these votes can be tabulated and registered on a blockchain. We can be secure in the numbers that we are seeing and receiving. And that's really something that we need to start to move towards. So I think there's just so much motivation for states to start doing this that, I have been working with some incredible people that are both hosting this conference and some that actually might join in this conversation at some point soon, to start to assist other states in understanding how they could possibly pass some of these laws. We had a few really exciting developments over the past couple weeks. North Dakota has just dropped their first blockchain bill. I believe South Dakota is joining as well. And we have, I think about 12 other states that might be dropping bills in their next session, either current session that is about to happen or in their next session, which is really, really exciting. So I think there's going to be this huge wave of momentum that just gets bigger and bigger this year. And it really takes all of us pitching in and getting hands-on this for that to really work. I don't know if so many of you guys have ever called or written to your legislators before. If you haven't, it's really easy to find out what that, who represents you if you don't already know, and what are the different ways to contact those individuals. So look up your representatives, look up your senators, and write to them. Even write to your state officials, write to your banking commissioner, and just send an email. You can even call their office. They're not going to pick up. No one's in their office. And in general, they don't pick up. They listen to the voicemails that are given to the public number. And so you can just call and say, hey, I'm a blockchain entrepreneur. I'm a developer. I'm an investor. And I would love to do more business in my own state. Can you please look at passing digital asset legislation? Can you consider, a positive outlook on the blockchain industry and start to think about those laws and policies? Every time you leave one of those voicemails, every time you send one of those emails, that's an extra data point that means that basically gives those legislators the ability to really know that they have to take action on those initiatives. Every time they get one of those, they then at a certain point are legally bound to taking action on those topics. So if you didn't know that, you do now. And I really hope that everyone listening to this even writes, one email to one of their legislators. But it's so easy. Once you write it once, you can send it to everybody. And it's a really easy way to be active on these topics. Is Trent here? Have we got him?
Hey guys.
Yeah, perfect timing.
I'm in Santa Fe and I couldn't find I couldn't get a coffee shop. Everything's closed down in this city. So anyone planning to travel to New Mexico, just be mindful of that.
Right. Well, it's looking good in there. I just took everyone through kind of the history of the movement in Wyoming and, what they can do to start to be involved. And, that we're starting a movement with getting different states who don't have blockchain laws to start introducing them. So maybe you want to give them a little bit of an update of, what that organization looks like or what are our next steps and, how people can start to get involved and help.
Yeah, certainly. Thank you, Brittany. We are in the process right now of getting bills filed. So everyone who may or may not have any activism or advocacy backgrounds, sessions usually pick up right after the election, the first weeks of January. People start getting sworn in, and then they go immediately into writing bills and drafting legislation. Some states allow you to start drafting legislation immediately after the election's over. Others have times you wait, periods where you file, and they all pretty much start ending about the first week of February. There are some that allow you to keep introducing afterwards, and you can even intro into the summer sessions. Every state is different, so it's a very decentralized, not one-size-fits-all approach to how you combat these. But in the states that we're kind of focusing on, which are the states in the frontier states, kind of near Wyoming, and in the area that tends to be more rural, we're in the phase of getting legislation introduced. And as you know, some states have already passed. The Dakotas passed. South Dakota's deadline was this last Wednesday. North Dakota's was the week before that. Nevada's is on the next week, Monday, and New Mexico the same. So a lot of legislation is getting created right now and pushed through. Utah's was 2 weeks ago. Utah has a great blockchain voting bill. They're going to expand the voting systems they already have in place there, and there's a great provider there with Votes, who I know you were there when Brock got the first ballot for president ever cast on the blockchain.
That was huge.
Yeah. And that was from the vote system in Utah County. So hopefully they'll be able to pass blockchain voting in Utah. Multiple other states are on board. We're looking at a good portfolio, about 10 states that will be trying to, not make every state Wyoming, but certainly preempt anything that could be prohibitive at the federal level. So, Wyoming's a special state, and no one wants to, they have the most favorable blockchain laws, banking laws. It's certainly the most competitive state for anyone who's looking for an edge in the industry, and they've gotten $20 billion plus of market capitalizations of thousands of corporations that have moved there. No one wants to take that away from Wyoming, but we certainly want to see competition amongst the states around there, at least allowing people, like you said, to own digital assets, right? And things of that nature that are a little more benign. And as you know, there's a lot of people that probably don't want to see things like that happen. It's the usual banking associations that we're going to be educating on a case-by-case scenario. And so we have a lot of work to do, and we're definitely looking for people who are interested in helping draft legislation, helping speak on topics, helping us organize, helping us do outreach, and kind of run the micro campaigns that will be needed on each state-by-state case. And so if anyone's interested in that, you can please reach out to me or Brittany or the Blockchain Center. They're very involved in this project. And yeah, I think that it's going to be a lot of fun, and certainly look forward to the battles ahead. So thank you all for having us.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, thank you so much, Trent. I think that's really what we're asking everyone for. As I said, what pushed us over the line in Wyoming was the blockchain industry getting involved. So, if you have time, as I said, the easiest thing to do is to write to your legislator and tell them that you care about blockchain and digital asset legislation. If you want to get further involved, if you have businesses in certain states where you'd like those laws to go through, or you have an expertise in the industry, we'd love for you to testify. All you do these days, you don't have to fly anywhere and show up in Congress. You can actually just come in on a Zoom, or you can do a phone call with a legislator and tell them about why this stuff is important to you. It's really the more hands on deck, the better, because every voice counts. Every voice that a legislator or a banker that's never heard about these types of technologies before, doesn't know a lot about them, that just gives them more confidence to move forward and vote on legislation that they might feel like is a risk, but after they talk to all of us, they probably feel like they're just a part of something that is inevitable, right?
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest battle isn't really trying to get people to do what they don't want, is just educating them and informing them that their preconceived notions or misconceptions about this stuff really isn't correct. And once we get through that, we tend to all be holding hands, singing Kumbaya, and right to the promised land of the libertopian dream that we're trying to build here. But you were actively involved in Wyoming, and I know you mentioned it, but thinking about legislation and the process of getting legislation enacted, it's a pretty Sisyphean task. People don't want to listen to you if you're grassroots. People don't think that you're serious. The legislators themselves are having to combat and manage their time. And so the fact that you guys were able to go into Wyoming and get 19 bills passed, 20 bills.
20, yeah.
Most passed unanimously is I don't know if it's ever been done before. I would be shocked if it had, for a portfolio of bills for one industry without a cater or a platoon of lobbyists from every edge of the world coming in there. I mean, it's pretty it's a pretty big, it's an epic feat that was accomplished, and I think that's a testament to what the movement's capable of, and what this technology actually does is it's democratizing the monetary system for a lot of folks. It can be democratizing the vote for a lot of folks. It can be democratizing data. It can allow us to understand property rights, and so many different pillars of blockchain technology that can be utilized for the common good and the welfare of the people and the everyone who plays a role in a state. So I hope that we can be successful, and I appreciate everything you're doing and helping us on this path, and everything the Blockchain Center of Miami and New York are doing to help us make that mission accomplished.
Yeah, absolutely. It's totally a people's movement. And I love, Trent, that you mentioned that in general, like this is something that takes tons of expensive lobbyists like flying in from all over to accomplish. And, no one got paid $1 to do any of this. Like we just literally drafted in blockchain folks from all across the planet, and everyone just flew in and showed up. And, you know, legislators in Wyoming that don't usually see people that are not from Wyoming, all of a sudden are surrounded by 150 people from all over the world, from countries they've never even thought about, and are hearing why, you know, America needs to have blockchain laws so that this industry can, you know, be able to build things in America. And they were shocked, like shocked into submission, enough to say, like, all right, all of these people have obviously on their own time, on their own dime, decided to come here because they're just so passionate. They want to tell us how important this technology is to them. And okay, well, I guess we better listen. And, you know, after enough meetings and enough weeks and months and now years, like now it's something that people are able to champion and they get it. Like I just feel like now we just have this wave of momentum that is, I would say, unstoppable. I also like to say inevitable. You know, you're looking at the markets right now, and it's obvious that if states don't have laws where you can build a blockchain company, they're missing out. And our country not having unified federal legislation yet, it means our country's missing out. So, you know, we can do our part to make sure that parts of this industry are comfortable building in America and have that, you know, stability and reassurance of legislative and regulatory infrastructure to feel comfortable, you know, building their dream company here as opposed to somewhere else.
Yeah. And, you know, that's a great point you bring up, Brittany. We, states are, in the conversations we're having, you know, is right on that topic. You know, the federal government's inaction and not giving us clarity isn't meant for us to not take action. You know, I agree in a hierarchy or supremacy of the law, and you know, the federal government does control what states tend to do, but there's also a great inherent small government 10th Amendment argument. If the federal government doesn't act or do something, the states absolutely must do something, because in the case of Wyoming, it's created this whole economic stimulus. There's going to be a windfall of revenue, regulatory capture created. And, you know, now with COVID, there's huge deficits and voids and gaps that the comptroller's offices don't even know what to do with. Some are just now floating the idea of finally coming around to legalizing marijuana. I don't know why it's illegal, but they're now thinking, well, maybe it's time we have to do this, right? Well, we shouldn't come to that point, and that shouldn't be the you know, the critical mass that causes people to want to innovate and keep on parity with countries and states that are well beyond us in this technology. China, Russia, you know, it really is a digital arms race to the finish line for supremacy and sovereignty. And, you know, I don't want to say it, but, you know, if we don't get our stuff together, these countries will completely demolish us. And so we need to be encouraging. We need to foment economic development. And I certainly think that every state should be doing that as much as possible for their people, for their citizens, and for their local economies, especially now with all of the new mounting obstacles we face. So,
I'm so glad you brought that up. Honestly, like it was such a pleasure this summer to be able to, you know, work with you and work with Nick on the Brock Pierce for President campaign, where we got to talk about the importance of the digital dollar. And that's where Brock started a lot of conversations with legislators, just because they didn't understand the competition that we're up against across the world, especially with China. You know, China's releasing the digital yuan. What do you think is going to be used for global trading? Something that is more transparent, which is not usually what we would say about Chinese money, but something that all of a sudden is now transparent and fast and efficient and easy to trade with. Like, that's going to come first. And I know a lot of blockchain entrepreneurs and developers that are partnering with the Chinese digital yuan project, because there is a government blockchain project for their national currency to partner with. Obviously, we know that these conversations are going on behind closed doors in the United States, but I don't think there are many blockchain entrepreneurs that feel that they can go to the US government and get a partnership to build on the digital dollar. Like, that's not something that is available to people right now. And so we have American entrepreneurs that are working with China instead, just because the opportunity is there and the innovation has already been flourishing over there. So I think we have a duty as people that expect to, continue to be Americans and continue to want to build our companies here, to explain to our government how far behind we are, and that it doesn't have to be that way. Trust me, American blockchain entrepreneurs are going to be very happy to get us up to speed. So we just need to get the green light from legislators that say that we're going to be safe to do so.
Yeah, that's the best thing about the people in this space. Brittany, you know this firsthand. The guys that are coding and working with distributed databases, everyone is such an honest person. They have probity. They're not disingenuous. It's not, people aren't trying to pass these laws to go become gazillionaires. That's already happened because the industry's been blessed with this economic surplus because it's got its intrinsic value. The fact that you can transfer this anywhere, low fees, low transaction fees, the network effect. It literally is a gift from God in the sense, or whatever God you believe in the sense that it just keeps on proving itself time and time again that this should be the standard, and that's why other countries are going into it, and we are behind. And as an American who loves our country, who does believe we are the land of the free and home of the brave, we really should be. We should consider our duty to go into the legislatures and encourage our friends and colleagues and people that we've given our trust and entrusted to write good law and legislation to say, look, man, it's time to steer the ship on course and make sure we're on parity with the countries around the world. And I know that you've done it, and I look forward to tapping your brain and going 100 miles an hour on this path with you. We're definitely in talks with a lot of states, so it'll be exciting to see how that unfolds over the next week, and especially over this weekend. So,
absolutely. And so, for the sake of our audience that's listening, we have already dropped bills in North and South Dakota. Possibly about to do something in Nevada. And what are the other states that are coming up, Trent?
Utah has blockchain voting. That's very exciting. We have bills in Nevada, New Mexico, Michigan, possibly Wisconsin, Texas, Alaska, Idaho. And we missed a couple deadlines, but we have some amendments possibly in a few other states. And we'll see where we end up after the dust has settled. I think that we have a pretty ambitious portfolio, but we'll definitely be focusing on our campaign efforts around a few of the more promising states. And just so everyone knows, not every state is to pass. I know Wyoming passed 19 bills. They range in everything from banking to distributed databases to property rights. And they really run the gamut of all of the pillars of blockchain technology. And probably the one that they didn't hit on out of the 6 or so pillars is voting. Is that correct, Brittany?
Correct. Yeah.
And I know Wyoming now is partnering with a few companies in the space, so they're actually moving into that 6th pillar, which is really exciting for Wyoming. They're basically knocking it out of the park. A lot of the states, it's not strategic to go in there and just kind of throw everything against the wall and see what sticks. So while Utah may be able to deal with voting, we're not trying any cryptocurrency regulations there or anything dealing with banking. And then in other states, we're trying to tokenize energy, utility, production, and actually introducing cryptocurrency stuff. North Dakota, we're codifying property rights in other states like South Dakota, just allowing people to own a digital asset and explaining what that is. And then in other states, we are focusing more on voting. This year is really exciting because of the election irregularities, or I guess irregularities in quotation marks. It depends on who you're talking to. I think there was nothing regular about the election in general. So from many perspective, you could say that the election was very irregular. But in the campaigns, certainly were, black swans as far as insanity. But I think, that certainly provides a lot of good opportunity there on blockchain voting. and to experiment with distributed databases and distributed ledgers and the ability to hash things and prevent systemic fraud and some of the hacking fraud that people claim to have seen. The allegations I know are unfounded and unproven, but there is enough worry to where people are holding hearings and things of that nature. Blockchain technology, one of the pillars is voting, and it's been utilized in boardrooms for the last decade. Multiple companies have been providing this technology, and I know states, as you mentioned, have experimented as well. So that's a really exciting development, and I think that there's a lot of promise there and a lot of opportunity, and I'm really excited to see where that goes. And if anyone wants to be involved in that, please, again, reach out to anyone at the Blockchain Center. I'll provide my personal email and cell phone. I know Brittany will too. We'd love to have people. We're building team right now in many states. So if anyone has a connection to any of the states we mentioned, we'd love to have you on board. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally. As I said before, this is an all hands on deck thing. So if you guys are interested in helping, please reach out and we can explain to you the different ways that you can help, because it could be as simple as writing a letter to your legislator in a state where we don't already have enough people that are writing. Everybody should be writing, but we can give you draft templates to send those emails. If you're interested in testifying because you're a blockchain entrepreneur or an investor or a developer that has a concern in the industry where you want to see new things, reach out to us. We'll give you an opportunity to get involved, because I know it's not just me and Trent that find this exciting. I've brought tons of people to their first ever kind of congressional testimony or interaction with the legislator, and they never thought that it could be so easy or so straightforward or so rewarding, right? So we're very happy to get you guys involved. And yeah, so just reach out to the Blockchain Center. We'll make sure that they have all of the information, and we really look forward to working with all you guys.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. I'm gonna log off right now. Please stay in contact, and let's have a good year.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much, and we're looking forward to seeing you out there. Anna, Nick, and everyone at the Blockchain Center, thank you guys so much for hosting us again, and we'll make sure to give you guys all of the information you need to make sure that if people want to get involved in these efforts, that they have the opportunity to do so. So enjoy the rest of Miami Blockchain Week. Enjoy the Hackathon and BTC Miami. Wish I could be there again in person with you guys, but enjoy it a little extra for me. And I'll see you next time.